Candice Holdsworth, the journalist and broadcaster, is back with us. Candice, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Ian.
Always nice to have you with us. Let's start with that story then. The jailing, of course, of Lucy Connolly was to do with inciting racial hatred. This was a tweet that followed the Southport murders. Now she and her legal team have failed to have her 31-month sentence reduced by the Court of Appeal. Let's have a listen to the original sentencing.
You used the social media platform, then known as Twitter, to publish the following, quote, "Mass deportation now. Set fire to all the hotels full of the for all I care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick knowing what these families will now have to endure. If that makes me racist, so be it." The sentence on count one, therefore, is one of 31 months imprisonment.
You see, here's the thing, Candice. I don't think that judge would have given 31 months had this been a couple of weeks before.
Yeah, I think that for me, from a free speech perspective, I mean, I absolutely agree. This was overly harsh. It wasn't clear to me that she was inciting violence in any way. I think it was vile. I personally think it was a vile tweet, but that doesn't mean that she needs to go to prison for it. I think the big issue that she has is that she pled guilty, and you know there were others involved in the riots who were also advised to plead guilty, but said no, I'm not going to do that. And They went to a jury trial and the jury found them innocent. There was a guy called Mark Heath that actually happened to him, and everyone told him, you need to plead guilty. That's the smart thing to do. And he said, no, I'm not doing it. I wasn't inciting racial hatred. These are just my opinions. But Lucy Connolly was advised to plead guilty, so she did. And now, in her appeal, they've just rejected that, one, she didn't know what she was doing, and two, that mitigating circumstances weren't taken into account. So legally, it's a really tough position, whereas I think the public look on this and just think, no, it's disproportionate. Someone should not be in jail for 3 years who poses absolutely no risk to the public.
I think that's the point, isn't it? And there were other circumstances around this. No one is going to defend the initial tweet. She deleted it. That's fine. That doesn't necessarily make it okay. But no one's defending that. No one is also suggesting that there isn't a sort of degree of responsibility you have to take for posting something like that and therefore face some kind of punishment. I think this all, for me, this is not, I don't think she's not a political prisoner. Nelson Mandela was a political prisoner. But she is someone who's received a hefty, and I would argue, a disproportionately long prison sentence.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the feeling that many people get. I think when more information came out about her as well, you know, when the Telegraph journalist Alison Pearson published her long piece, and people sort of realised the background to Lucy Connolly. You know, she was bereaved, she's a childminder, she cares for her husband. She had deleted the tweet after she wrote it, so she did realise that it was wrong. But sadly, I think a lot of these things, though they can be entered into a court of law as part of your plea, they have to consider things on a legal basis. So I think that initial guilty plea, that was obviously not good advice. But you know what? If you're an ordinary person, you're going to take the advice of your lawyer. You know, you're going to think, okay, this person knows better than me, unless you are a seriously bloody-minded person who's just like, no, I'm going to take the risk.
It's interesting that Tommy Robinson, it's been announced, is going to be released from jail in the next week. Now, this isn't because of an appeal. He didn't win an appeal. This is because of a 4-month possibility of essentially redeeming himself and recognising that what he did was wrong. But this was a man that actively campaigned and almost publicly enjoyed telling everybody that he was breaking the law. He didn't care. He didn't. It wasn't contempt once. It was 10 times that he breached that situation, raised money, pleaded guilty, and, you know, away he went to jail. Now, whatever anybody thinks about his prison sentence, it's rather interesting that if we're looking at the finer details, she realised instantly she'd done something wrong and removed the tweet. Robinson carried it on what seems forever, showing videos and films publicly, online, etc. So, you know, of those two cases, they're not, by the way, directly comparable. There are some seductive comparisons, but it's interesting that she will continue to spend her time in jail. She could be released in July, but, you know, in theory, another 2 years.
I know. You know, and yes, comparing it to the Tommy Robinson case is absolutely, it's interesting, and I think it's relevant. Also, you know, if you look during the riots themselves, the July riots, there were people who took part in actual violence, like standing outside mosques and stuff, you know, trying to intimidate people. They actually got
didn't get 31 months in jail.
Yeah, for actual violence, for deeds, for physical acts, you know, than someone just typing something, you know, screaming into Twitter. And it's not clear that it actually did incite anything. And so, you know, I think for most people who are interested in the free speech question, they will say this is part of a larger theme that, you know, in our society currently, the authorities seem to be obsessed with speech, and in particular, speech on social media. And they seem to think that that is more worthy of police visits, investigation, prosecution than violent crime. How many places in this country has violent crime gone up? It's not being investigated by the police. People are feeling unsafe in their own neighborhoods. Yet you can get a knock on the door for writing spicy things on Twitter about your child's school or something.
Yeah. Crazy times. We'll come back to that. So we're asking the question, what purpose does Lucy Connolly's sentence serve? Keir Starmer, a man who many people would like to give a prison sentence to, his Brexit reset deal grants European fishermen access, of course, for many years, 12 years, sparking a bit of a backlash. The agreement includes dynamic alignment with EU rules, allowing Brussels to impose sanctions on British exports if it's altered. Many people criticising this. The Tories, I mean, they've got some front to do so, but they are criticising it. And of course, Reform UK. And there's additional agreements, including a youth mobility scheme, yet to be decided. But that seems to be full of flipping holes as well. It was described by one person as a horror show, and I tend to agree.
Yeah, in particular, the fishing rights. I just don't know why Britain, as an island nation with an abundance of fish, has always been so weak on protecting its industry. I mean, this goes back historically, you know, back to the 1970s, you know, when there were all the fights in the North Sea, you know, with Icelandic fishermen and British fishermen. People came in and just pretty much gave up. They just gave up the fishing rights. And now this has happened once again with the EU. This was a huge point of leverage that Britain could have used. You know, our fish, we sell to the we sell a huge amount, and once again they've given it away, and I don't understand that. That is so confusing to me. You know, that was the point of Brexit, that we act in our own interests. Yeah.
And nobody minds an agreement or a trading partnership, that's fine, but this just looks as if the scales have tilted well and truly towards Brussels, with very little coming back this end. And this story as well, a social media activist called Zoe Bread has won a fight against a Manchester parking fine after exposing confusing signs. She did this via TikTok. It forced the council to cancel the ticket and other similar ones as well, and admit that the signs could have been clearer. Let's have a listen to a clip from her council battle.
Been doing a bit of research into the road. In the last 3 days, 3 people have got tickets for the same reason.
What you would need to do is write back in.
It's not even so much about me anymore. It's more that I know that it's happening so often there because it's your fault. I mean, the council's fault. You know, the signage is just totally misleading.
Would it be the SOP car park?
Yeah, so your sign points to the...
The thing is, it is clear that that machine is for the SOP car park.
It's only clear when you know, but if you've never parked there before, you see it says pay over there with an arrow, you just go over there to the big pay here sign.
Yeah, and she was right and they were wrong. As simple as that, Candice. This happens a lot, right?
It does. Oh, I love it. It's so great. You know, I love these influencers who sort of have like a very specific thing that they look into, and it's actually really useful to the public. I know so many people who've had issues with parking like this, and they've said it's almost Kafka-esque. You know, they know that they've done no wrong, yet they have to go through this long, lengthy, laborious process to prove that they're innocent. They're sort of guilty before proven innocent, and it's so petty when you're dealing with the councils. Yeah. I mean, I knew one person, they'd taken a picture of what they said was her car and tried to give her some like huge fee. They said that she'd parked for the whole day at some shopping centre. It wasn't her car, it wasn't her license plate, but she had to prove that. It was just the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it's horrible, and it's such a, again, talking about injustices, it's the amount. I got a parking ticket yesterday, funny enough, through the post, because I went to do a job. It was at a hotel. I went into the car park. I was there for about 2 hours, came home again, didn't realise it was one, and this was like was 8 in the evening, by the way, so it wasn't like I was trying to use the hotel to do my shopping or something like that. Plus, it's not near any particular shops either. And yet they had one of those camera things that film you going in and coming out again, and I'm now 60 quid lighter as a result of this. They would say, well, the signs were there, I just wasn't expecting to be charged to park in a hotel. Nonetheless, there we are. Listen, Candice, thank you very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate that as ever. Candice Holdsworth, the journalist and the broadcaster.